At 04:30 a.m. October 3rd, 2025. Over the Poltava Oblast in eastern Ukraine, a key battleground just 40 miles from the Russian border. This is the largest aerial assault of the year, 35 missiles with a heavy dose of Iskander ballistics plus 60 drones screaming towards a single critical gas hub. Their mission is to freeze Ukraine for the winter. Except the target they're locked onto isn't a gas hub, it's a ghost, a $500,000 masterpiece of deception. Inflatable structures mimic the exact silhouette of a compressor station, while powerful heat emitters glow at 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, creating a target so perfect, so irresistible, that the missile's own guidance systems are leading them to their doom. Meanwhile, 7 miles away, the real $2 billion facility, the heart of Ukraine's winter survival, sits completely invisible, tucked under advanced adaptive camouflage. So why would Ukraine let $200 million worth of missiles get this close? Because surviving the punch was never the goal. The goal was to use Russia's own attack to set up a devastating counterstrike. At 04:15 a.m. local time. For 45 agonizing seconds, every screen in the Ukrainian command bunker is flashing pure red. The plan is failing. The entire Russian barrage is heading directly for the real gas hub. The Russian guidance system is brutally simple. It locks onto the most intense heat signature it can find. And right now, that's the real facility. Then the trap springs. 50 DJI Mod quadcopters rise from the fields below. They aren't weapons, they are lures. Their heat emitters flare to life, creating a thermal signature that is deliberately stronger, hotter, and more irresistible to the incoming missiles' seekers than the actual gas hub. On the tactical map, you can see the shift. The entire swarm of missiles begins a slow, deliberate turn, pulled off course and redirected towards the decoy. The lure is working perfectly, until the fog fights back. The thick mist scatters the DJI Mod quadcopter's signals, just enough for 10 of the slower Shahed drones to lose the ghost signal. Flying blind, one of them gets catastrophically lucky. It clips a pressure valve on the real pipeline. A fireball erupts the $5 million damage that Naftogaz would later report. But back in Belgorod, the Russian commander sees that fireball on his drone feed and makes a fatal assumption. He reports a direct hit he believes he has won. And to crush any remaining resistance, he gives the order to unleash his most powerful electronic weapon, convinced he's just mopping up a crippled target. At 04:17 a.m. local time, the entire battlefield goes silent. A $50 million Krasuka 4 jammer roars to life, blanketing a 20-mile radius in a wave of pure electronic noise. On the Ukrainian screens, every radio link is shredded into static. The video feeds from the DJI Mod quadcopters are ripped from the sky as the drones fall uselessly to the earth. To the Russians, the fight is over. They have won. Or so they think. This is where Ukraine's ultimate act of battlefield recycling comes into play. For months, they've been collecting every crashed Russian Shahed they could find, scavenging the wreckage, reverse engineering the systems, and rebuilding them into something the Russians would never expect a weapon pointed back at its original masters. They are the fiber phantoms. As the Krasuka jammer kills all radio signals, 20 of these reprogrammed Shaheds go active. They are physically connected by spools of hair-thin fiber optic cable. You can't jam a beam of light. The Krasuka jammer hasn't blinded the phantoms. It has just provided them with perfect cover, clearing the sky of any witnesses. Hugging the terrain at just 30 feet, the phantoms are now a ghost army streaking towards Belgorod, completely undetected. Back in the Russian command post, the commander watches his screen in disbelief. His jammer is at full power, yet the massive explosions from the decoy site have turned his radar display into a chaotic mess of false returns. He's blind, he's confused, and through the static, he thinks he sees something still moving. In a panic, he gives the one order he has left: fire everything. The S-400 batteries, which thought the fight was over, now have to reacquire targets in the middle of a self-inflicted radar storm. At 04:18 a.m. local time, the sky over the decoy site turns into a scene of pure self-inflicted chaos. The Russian S-400 batteries are now frantically launching missiles not at a real target, but at the burning, smoking wreckage of the inflatable ghost they've already destroyed. The S-400's fire control computer, a piece of technology designed to track 100 targets simultaneously, is now in a state of digital schizophrenia. It's trying to assign threat priorities to targets that flicker in and out of existence, some moving at Mach 6, others drifting like smoke. Every time it calculates a firing solution, the target's signature changes, warped by the heat and debris. It's an impossible equation, and the system is solving it by throwing million-dollar tantrums into an empty field. Their state-of-the-art fire control arrays are completely overwhelmed. They are locked onto the massive heat blooms, and the radar returns from the debris cloud, convinced they are finishing the job. They are wasting multi-million-dollar missiles to pulverize a field of burning rubber. But in all this self-inflicted confusion, one real threat slips through. A single KH-101 cruise missile, a leaker that broke from the initial lure, is now screaming towards the actual gas hub. This is where the real defense kicks in. 7 miles away, the American-gifted NASAMS batteries, with a clear and unobstructed view, go to work. 2 AMRAAM missiles leap from their launchers at Mach 4. They have one clean target. The KH-101 vanishes in a precise surgical fireball before it even gets close. And this entire Russian fireworks show over an empty field, it's the perfect cover. Flying low and silent beneath the chaos, the 20 Fiber Phantoms use the rolling hills to mask their final approach into Belgorod. They are now just 43 seconds from impact. Back in his command post, the Russian commander sees his S-400s hitting something. He sees massive secondary explosions lighting up the sky. He reports a resounding success. He has no idea the fireworks he's celebrating are the very thing masking the approach of the drones that are about to wipe his launch site off the map. At 04:19 a.m. local time, it's no longer a radar that spots the threat. It's a terrified Russian soldier on the ground in Belgorod. Through a break in the fog, he sees it a dark shape moving impossibly fast and low. Then another, and another. His frantic shouts into the radio confirm the impossible. The attack wasn't over. It was just beginning. The last line of defense roars to life. The Panzer missile systems, Russia's point-blank bodyguards, begin firing wildly into the mist. This should be a slaughter. 12 miles of engagement range missiles that can swat jets out of the sky. But the Panzer's brain, its radar, is searching for an electronic ghost. It's designed to lock onto the radio signals and heat signatures of conventional drones. The Fiber Phantoms have neither. To the Panzer's advanced radar, they are completely invisible. The Russian commander, his voice cracking with rage and disbelief, screams into the radio, "Manual override fire at anything that moves!" Inside the Panzer vehicle, the gunner slams his hand on the override switch. His optical sights are nearly useless, a blurry mess of fog and strobing explosions. He's reduced to hunting for shadows, trying to lead a target moving at 170 feet per second with a joystick. A burst of 30mm cannon fire rips a line of holes in the dirt 100 yards behind a Phantom that was already changing direction. Every shot is a guess of prayer against the laws of physics. It's a gesture of pure, unadulterated desperation. A few Phantoms are destroyed by lucky shots in the frantic barrage, but it's like trying to stop a tidal wave with a bucket. 14 are still coming. The lead Phantom's camera locks onto its target and his Iskander launch vehicle, its missile tube gaping open as the crew scrambles to reload. 22 seconds to impact. The drone drops its now useless fiber optic tether. Its warhead is armed. The ground in Belgorod begins to shake, but it's not from their own launchers anymore. The Russian commander's victory is about to come crashing down, literally, at 04:20 a.m. local time. This is the fatal flaw in Russian doctrine, the one Ukraine bet everything on. A 50-ton Iskander launch vehicle, a mobile fortress, is completely helpless for the 15 seconds it takes to reload a missile. Its crew is exposed. Its fuel is unprotected. It is a sitting duck. And the Fiber Phantoms have just found a flock of them. The first Phantom doesn't aim for the launcher itself. That's inefficient. It targets the 1,000-pound hydrazine fuel tanker parked right next to it. 90-pound warhead turns the tanker into a massive fireball, and the chain reaction is instantaneous. The second explosion isn't another drone. It's the ammunition on the neighboring launch vehicle cooking off from the intense heat. This is the moment the entire battle flips on its head. The hunters have become the hunted. The very missiles Russia launched to cripple Ukraine's gas supply created the perfect smokescreen for the drones that are now tearing their own base apart. This is the ultimate reversal. Russia is being annihilated by its own reprogrammed weapons under the cover of its own self-inflicted chaos. Back in his command post, the Russian commander's screen, which just moments ago showed him a successful strike in Ukraine, now shows him the live feed of his own launch site being systematically dismantled piece by piece. His flawless victory is now a column of black smoke rising from his own backyard. The bait has been taken, the trap has been sprung, and now the boomerang is coming home. Phantom number 1 slams into its target, but it doesn't just explode, it unleashes a physics lesson from hell. The 90-pound high-explosive warhead's shrapnel, moving at 5,000 feet per second, acts like a million tiny matches, instantly igniting the 1,000 pounds of hydrazine rocket fuel stored on the vehicle. But the real killer is the Monroe effect. In a microsecond, the warhead's copper liner is forged into a needle-thin jet of molten metal, a supersonic scalpel moving at 23,000 feet per second. It punches through the teller's 6 inches of hardened armor as if it were cardboard. The pressure wave from the first kill, a staggering 20,000 psi, crumples the neighboring launch vehicle like a tin can just before its own sympathetic detonation cooks off. And then the next Phantom hits. And the next. In less than 10 seconds, 14 separate strikes turn a $100 million launch site into a scrapyard, sending a 300-foot column of black smoke into the morning sky. So what does the battlefield look like the morning after Russia threw a $200 million punch and mostly hit itself? Satellite images from NASA tell the whole story. In Ukraine, the damage is minimal, a $5 million scorch mark on a single compressor with Naftogaz reporting 95% of its capacity still online. There would be no winter blackout. But over the border in Belgorod, it's a catastrophe. A $100 million launch site has been turned into a smoldering junkyard. Russia lost 25 of its 35 prize missiles and 50 of its 60 drones, all for a single glancing blow. This was never just about blowing up pipes. It was a deliberate act of terror designed to freeze millions of Ukrainian civilians in the dark. But the plan backfired spectacularly. Not only did Ukraine's gas grid hold, but the failed attack handed them the perfect opportunity to strike back. An eye for an eye, Ukraine's gas for Russia's oil and missiles. The loss of the Belgorod launch site has now created a logistical nightmare, forcing Russia to pull its remaining Iskanders deeper into its own territory. Of course, the moment the smoke cleared, the propaganda war began. Moscow called it a technical glitch, the same tired excuse they always use. Except you can't argue with crystal clear images of a burning Russian base splashed across every news channel from CNN to Kiev. The myth of an invincible Russian arsenal went up in smoke, and the psychological victory for Ukraine was immense. President Zelensky called it a failed act of sabotage, and the West responded by unlocking another $500 million in aid. And this brings us to the final strategic checkmate. The attack has forced Putin into a nightmare dilemma. Does he protect his launch sites deep in the rear, or does he protect his troops on the front lines? He can't do both. Every S-400 system he's now forced to pull back to defend his own bases is another gaping hole in the sky over the Donbass, another open door for Ukrainian F-16s and ATAC-MS. This is the new doctrine of warfare Ukraine is writing in real time. A low-cost asymmetric trap just drained Russia's war chest and threw its entire strategy into chaos. The bear poked the beehive, and now it's getting stung back hard. So what's the next move in this high-stakes chess game? If you were in command, what would Ukraine's next asymmetric target be to cause maximum damage to the Russian war machine? Let me know your plan in the comments below. Let me know your plan in the comments below. Let me know your plan in the comments below.